Tonight, from red to gray and sometimes black, I get into it Charter of Rights style. Also tonight, Jimmy went back up to Richmond Hill, and that can only mean another bootleg superhero flick will be played somewhere. Ugh. And also tonight, something does a bear! Yeah! You probably clicked this looking for a bear crapping in the woods, but instead you've landed on the Cold Bear Report. Ha ha ha! Nation, after 4 long months of lockdown, we're finally able to do something we haven't been allowed to do since mid-November. Browse in a store. You'd think this wouldn't be a big deal, but some of us can't buy clothes directly off a website. Some of us need to actually try things on, and others need to see the green background before purchasing it just to make sure it's thick enough to work and lights properly. Best of all, people in Ontario who are still using Hotmail are now eligible for the vaccine. What's going on?
Doug Ford just moved us to Grey Zone.
Again? But I didn't get to the shoe store yet.
Too late, Bear. We're back in lockdown.
Don't we normally get some sort of warning? Oh, man. Nation, the third wave has just crashed on our shores and the far more contagious variants are raging. How badly? Well, according to recent modeling in Alberta, the variants are even contagious outside. And why is it so bad out there? Well, for example, the ironically named Grace Life Church in Edmonton actually required police and private security to barricade it in order to finally stop members from attending the church services. A congregation which has repeatedly violated mask, social distancing requirements, and the maximum 15% capacity restrictions. In fact, their online broadcasts are showing congregants even singing without masks in close proximity. These COVIDiots just don't care about human life, just so long as they're allowed to continue their little social club. And nation, it's not about expressing faith. That's been proven to be done very effectively, remotely, and safely. This is just plain selfishness. So even after the pastor was charged with violating public health orders and the church was hit with 2 closure orders, they continued to pack the house throughout Easter. And it's bad in Alberta, with cases rapidly climbing from 4,620 active cases just 1 month ago to more than 11,000 active cases today, and that number isn't coming down anytime soon. This is not martyrdom, people. Any religious leaders failing to abide by public health guidelines should be held responsible for the sicknesses and illnesses of their parishioners. And if any of those attendees die from COVID, then that pastor and the church elders should be charged with manslaughter and criminal negligence. What now?
Excuse me, excuse me,
What is it, quitting time?
excuse me, sorry, excuse me, oh, excuse
Jimmy?
me, sorry.
Jimmy! We've just gone to full lockdown. Oh, good grief. That changed quickly. How am I supposed to continue the show? I'm blind! Sorry about that. Okay, there's nothing on the teleprompter. You're gonna have to wing it, Bear. What? Do you know how complicated the rest of this gets? Just wing it, Bear. Just wing it. Oh, fine. Let's go, Bear. I'm working on it. Gah. What did you do that for? I don't like dead air. Okay. We were talking about church violating the pandemic restrictions and... right. But What about the charter, you say? You did say that, didn't you? Are you still there? Keep going. Oh, fine. Let's talk about the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, a document that a lot of people refer to, but very, very, very few have even glanced at. When people suggest COVID restrictions impair religious freedom, they are not wrong. Section 2A of the Charter offers broad prima facie protection to 1. Freedom of conscience and religion. 2. Freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media communication. 3. Freedom of peaceful assembly. And 4. Freedom of association. But these rights can be limited in accordance with Section 1, the first section, the one before religious freedoms, a fact I point out because that's not an accident. Even though the freedoms of religion and expression in Section 2 are very important, Section 1 of the Charter clearly states the rights and freedoms in the Charter are not absolute, and governments can limit them subject only to such reasonable limits prescribed by law as can be demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society. So what does that mean? Well, for example, freedom of expression may be limited by laws against hate propaganda or child pornography because they prevent harm to individuals and groups. And our living tree doctrine is really big on preventing harm. Similarly, these rights can be limited to protect other rights or important national values, such as keeping hundreds of thousands of citizens from dying by simply limiting the avoidable spread of a deadly virus. In fact, there's a very strong argument that government has an obligation to limit freedoms in a pandemic because Section 7 of the Charter guarantees everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of the person, and the right not to be deprived thereof, except in accordance with the principles of fundamental justice. So while many churchgoers claim that gathering in church is a harmless act, and have used the analogy that their interpretation of this is no different than the fact any group of weather forecasters will likely have varying predictions based on their interpretation of data. As Bill Maher rightly pointed out, while weather forecasters may differ on what might happen tomorrow, they all agree about yesterday because of science. And yes, governments may not compel individuals to perform or abstain from performing otherwise harmless acts on the basis of the religious significance of those acts to others. But ignoring social distancing, mask use, and universally applied non-discriminatory guidelines restricting gatherings in an enclosed building during a pandemic is not a harmless act. The Charter protects those basic rights and freedoms for all Canadians, and that is considered essential to preserving Canada as a free and democratic country. But since many churches of the same faith are continuing services remotely without risking their congregations, any claim that your religion requires you to conduct unsafe practices on the basis of religious freedoms moves your faith outside the religious freedom category and deep into the cultism category. And that takes me to obligations under the Charter, because every Canadian citizen also has responsibilities. And those are 1. Obeying the law. One of Canada's founding principles is the rule of law. Individuals and governments are regulated by laws and not by arbitrary actions. Specifically, that no person or group is above the law. 2. Taking responsibility for oneself and one's family. A lot of people use this as the bootstrap argument, claiming everyone should take care of themselves and not be a burden on society. And some people use this as a reason to cut welfare and other social services. And while the belief behind this passage is that work contributes to personal dignity and self-respect, and therefore to Canada's prosperity, the legal requirement isn't about employment. It's about Canadian values. A nation where all of us contribute in keeping with one's abilities, in order to ensure that help is there for the people who need it, because one of our Canadian values is that human beings fundamentally have inherent value. 3, serving on a jury. Yeah, when you're called to do so, you're legally required to serve. Serving on a jury is a privilege that makes the justice system work, as it depends on impartial juries made up of citizens. 4, voting in elections. The right to vote comes with a responsibility to vote in federal, provincial, or territorial and local elections. Nearly half of you aren't pulling your weight. If that's because you think your vote doesn't count, I've got news for you. Last election, Conservative candidates lost 20 electoral district races by just 2,000 votes or fewer. The combined margin for those 20 losses is less than 25,000 votes. In every one of these 20 cases, the Liberal vote was split with other parties. If Conservatives had got those 25,000 votes, then they would have won the election. And with these 20 seats, that would have put Andrew Scheer in the Prime Minister's office, where he'd be right now, during COVID. Unless you're in Alberta, every vote matters. 5. Helping others in the community. Millions of volunteers frequently donate their time to help others, but it doesn't have to be through an organization. It's about giving back where you can, helping people in need, assisting at schools, volunteering to pick up things for shut-in neighbors, encouraging newcomers to integrate, or even donating to food banks or other charities. Yeah, online counts. And an active level of volunteering is also an excellent way to gain useful skills and develop friends and contacts. But I don't recommend it if you have a lot of fur and an aversion to pepper spray. Blech. And finally, 6, protecting and enjoying our heritage and environment. Every citizen has a role to play in avoiding waste and pollution while protecting Canada's natural, cultural, and architectural heritage for future generations. So you fail at being a citizen if you deny climate change, as much as you fail at being a citizen if you desecrate a public statue of John A. Macdonald. Take that, both right and left. Ha! We'll be right back. Ugh, now what? I can't do the next lighting setup. Can I help? It's not a capability thingy, it's a unionized thingy. Ugh. The good news is my buddy in Richmond Hill slipped me a copy of Batman vs. Superman. Oh no. Is this the same guy who gave us the bootleg Snyder cut? He swears this one is different. Right. Look, it's BVS or we end the show early. Fine, let's see it.
That's how it starts. The fever, the rage that turns good men cruel.
This Bat vigilante is like a one-man reign of terror.
Nobody cares about Clark Kent taking on the Batman.
You don't know this world a thing. You never did.
Do you know the oldest lie in America, Senator? Devils don't come from hell beneath us. They come from the sky.
20 years in Gotham, how many good guys are left? How many stayed that way? He has the power to wipe out the entire human race.
Black and blue. God versus man. Day versus night. The red capes are coming. The red capes are coming.
Yeah. Who else saw that one coming? It had a setup at least this time. Ugh. Okay, we'll be right back. You know, I'm just saying that you can't do these shows if everything's cut. Oh, Nation, that's all for the Colbert Report this week. Take care, stay safe, and watch out for wildlife on the roads, particularly if it's dark. Ooh. Yeah, we're not even going to bother you telling you what the next episode's name is. We never seem to do it anyway. Bye!